Malcontent News is a team of journalists, activists, and researchers with three key missions. A commitment to show an unfiltered view of the before, during, and after of key events live as it happens. To defend the First Amendment using our rights of a free press. And to amplify the voices of underrepresented individuals including Black, Indigenous, persons of color, and the LGBTQIA+ community. Our team is committed to seeking equality for all and holding those in power accountable. The easiest way to support Malcontent News is to bookmark our website at malcontentnews.com, like and follow us on Facebook, subscribe to us on YouTube, and follow us on Twitter, TikTok, Twitch, Instagram, and in the Google News app. To provide financial support, you can become a patron, make a one-time donation through Venmo, or link your Twitch account to your Amazon Prime account and use your free subscription to subscribe to Malcontent News. Thank you for supporting independent journalism and for being a malcontent. Good evening, malcontents. I am David. I am the malcontent, and today is Wednesday, May 26th, 2021. A year ago today, the name George Floyd was known all across the United States. The terrible anniversary of George Floyd's murder, and we can use the word murder, was 1 year ago and 1 day. The news didn't break until today. And let me go ahead and pull in my co-host. Jennifer, how are you doing this evening?
I am doing really well. I'm excited for tonight. And so, yeah, I hope everybody really enjoys all of the hard work that you put into this.
It has certainly been a labor of love. This was 1 year in the making. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. Jennifer, what I want to do is, normally we do our chit chat. We're doing a different format tonight. Let's go ahead and do our land acknowledgement. We can talk about, can you hear us for a couple of minutes? And then we'll show it to the world.
All right. Malcontent News comes to you from Seattle, Washington, the occupied homeland of Coast Salish people. We are grateful to live and work as guests on these lands, a land which touches the shared water of all tribes of lands within the Quamish, the and Muckleshoot Nations. This land acknowledgement is but one small gesture in the ongoing process of working toward repairing and sustaining relations with Coast Salish lands, waters, peoples, and their other than human kin.
And I think our land acknowledgement takes on special meaning tonight with what we're covering and what's going on, and something that is going to be highlighted in the documentary. Jennifer, I know you've had a chance to see it. And actually, Jennifer is the only person on the planet other than myself who has seen the version that we are going to show tonight. There's a version that the team saw, and that version received a few more hours of editing today. The other thing is, if you're a patron, this is a very different version than the early release version that you got to see at the end of February. This is an hour and 8 minutes of running time. And Jennifer, there's a couple of things I'd like to comment before we kind of roll this. The
Okay.
first thing is we have, in a sense, a correction. I mean, when you say the word correction, it implies you got something wrong. But there's breaking news out of Seattle tonight. Assistant Chief Steve Herjak, who was the incident commander from May 29 to June 1st. So, Assistant Chief Steve Herjak oversaw the response on May 30th when things devolved into riots in downtown Seattle, on May 31st, which led to June 1st and the Pink Umbrella riot, as it is called. He was demoted today, about 2 hours ago or 3 hours ago, by Acting Chief Adrian Diaz. The reason we bring this up, there is I don't want to get into the documentary, but there is a little area where they say no one's been disciplined to date. That was accurate 3 hours ago. It's not accurate now. And the editing team knows it's about 90 to 100 minutes just to correct that one little slide at this point. And anybody who's in video production knows exactly what I'm talking about. So, Jennifer, I wanted to bring that up.
Absolutely.
The other thing is slow golf clap. Oh, he's been demoted to captain.
Yeah. Yeah. I know. I was like, is that even real? Is that a demotion?
The other thing that I want to say before we get started here is, and Jennifer will play the warning also before we start. That's the other thing. There's a warning built in, but we'll play the warning. It actually doesn't have to do with the warning. There are people that are going to be highlighted, people that have been interviewed, people that you're going to see that have essentially been canceled out of the Seattle protest scene. They may have been canceled because it was determined by people they were not supportive of the Black Lives Matter movement, or maybe because of their ethics or their conducts, or because of disagreements. And there will probably be people watching this tonight going, why is this person in this documentary? Jennifer's not heard any of this. This is all organic, I'm saying right now, but I believe that Jennifer, as a historian, will come to my defense on this one, which is they're an integral part of this story. And to erase them from the story is essentially erasing history.
Yeah, no, it definitely would alter like the historical record to remove people who have been canceled or are no longer seen in a favorable light from this documentary. So, as historians, you gotta like it's all about nuance. So this is the same kind of thing, right? It's about nuance.
Yeah, it is. And I think we've really tried to put the nuance into this. The last thing that I want to put here is I want to thank, first of all, our patrons, everyone who Venmoed us. And that isn't just our current patrons, it is patrons past, and patrons current, and patrons future. If it wasn't for you, this wouldn't be possible. If it wasn't for the Venmo donations, this would not be possible. The other thing is, I'm going to try not to get a little emotional here. I want to thank my wife. This wouldn't have been possible without her love and support and trust and patience.
Jeez,
And
David.
so thank you for that. And Jennifer, I think that's enough. We're going to go ahead and roll that warning.
Yes.
And with that, ladies and gentlemen and theys, can you hear us?
For the first time, we are seeing images of George Floyd. There he is, inside the convenience store just moments before his arrest.
You can't win. I'm not trying to win. I'm not trying to win.
Floyd pleading with the officers.
Don't do me like that, man. In the car. Okay, can I talk to you, please?
Yes, you get in this car. We can talk.
I am claustrophobic.
In Minneapolis tonight, tensions are high as 4 police officers have been fired after a man was pinned to the ground and died. The incident was caught on camera.
He can be heard on the video saying, "I can't breathe."
It is so hard to watch this. It goes for about 10 minutes and it shows a white police officer with his knee on the back of the neck of a handcuffed black man.
He ain't doing nothing now. Put him in the car.
How long y'all gotta hold him down?
It just goes on and on and on. At the beginning, he's pleading for breath. He's saying he can't breathe, he can't breathe. At one point, he says, "Don't kill me." And they seem to be the last words that he utters.
The victim was George Floyd from Minneapolis.
A small group stood outside what they believe is the home of former Minneapolis police officer Derek Chauvin.
Enough is enough. We tired now.
So many people who are here for the protest have actually joined a march towards the Minneapolis Police Department 3rd Precinct, where people here believe the officers involved in that incident who were fired.
Protesters poured onto the street in Minneapolis on Tuesday night.
How would you describe the atmosphere?
Toxic, ready to go. They're just waiting somebody to break the camel, and it's gonna go down. It could have been my son.
Yeah.
It could have been it could have been me. It could have been my family. It could have been. It's unjust. It shouldn't be. It shouldn't be. It shouldn't be. It shouldn't be.
The protest in Minneapolis was held at the site of the incident. The police then opened tear gas and smoke bombs on the crowd.
State police officers in riot gear, backed by the National Guard, moved in to secure the streets of Minneapolis as fires continued to burn in the morning hours. Last night, protesters set fire to the police station where the 4 officers involved in the arrest of George Floyd worked before they were fired. It was one of many fires set in the city, including this building that partially collapsed. There has also been widespread looting. Corboy Vala had to fend off looters who tried to steal the safe from his sports bar.
Black women! Black women! Black people! Black people! We!
A lot of tension and conflict between the protesters and the police force out last night. Seattle Police Department.
They marched down to the police headquarters, still peaceful. They sort of went around. The police would not let them near the headquarters. Eventually, they started breaking the windows of the Amazon right next door. The police started pushing them back. They started pepper spraying them.
Dozens and dozens of people out last night, and we know today we are expecting at least 2 more demonstrations in the daytime, one at noon and one at 3 o'clock.
Said, hey, we're gonna have to start moving people, and then a couple other people came in and we were like,
To be held accountable for their actions. We're not going without no justice, no peace. No justice, no peace. No justice, no peace.
What's the message you wanted people to hear today? A strong, firm message that we're not going to take our black men and women being murdered by police, and that something has to change. And I feel like this is something that was so unbelievable and unimaginable that I think we are going to be heard.
The city of Seattle estimated 4,000 people marched on Saturday, but it looked like a lot more.
This had been my first protest in almost a decade. My daughter-in-law is black. My grandchildren will be black. The cries of George Floyd were the cries of her, of my progeny. Historically, protesters have tried to march on I-5, but police would block access to the highway. City and state police officers pulled back, and thousands spilled onto the freeway. Others continued to march towards Westlake. Just under the surface, the same toxic stew in Minneapolis was brewing in Seattle. The camel's back was about to break.
I want you to see it, and Winston said, I want you to share it. It's firecrackers. It was firecrackers.
Down the hill.
There is a huge group of people running down from the other direction here. And the tear gas is starting to roll up the hill, so we're going to roll down this way. I don't know what happened because we were under the bridge. All right, those are flashbang grenades. And they were to our west, southwest. That's not thunder. Yeah. We're kind of getting squeezed into the tear gas cloud here.
Just frustrated people out here with some of these clashes with police. And keep in mind, this is just a block down the road from where that peaceful protest was going on over at the Westlake Center.
There were at least 4, possibly 5 police cruisers destroyed by flames. So that was the scene a little bit ago, and it's just an inferno.
Yeah, the police line has been moving very swiftly up through Westlake. We've actually seen some SPD officers spray some OC, possibly some tear gas, and the line is moving very quickly. As police have begun to move the line, they have said numerous times, reminding about the curfew.
Seattle police responded with a heavy hand on Saturday. It had the opposite effect, as curfews and tear gas only brought more people to the streets.
The crowds go home, saying that it's time to go.
Ryan, things have escalated quickly in terms of crowd size. There are thousands of people here in Seattle on what is the 6th day in a row of protesting. Now,
Seattle police put a line in the sand at 11th and Pine, 1 block from the East Precinct. The area became known as the Western Barricade, and the number of protesters marching to Capitol Hill was doubling every day. A nation, isolated by COVID, became riveted to its screens, watching the events unfold in the palms of their hands.
And the reason they have these umbrellas is not because it's raining in Seattle. It is because they are guarding against possible pepper spray and tear gas. And that is exactly what happened last night. It was a very peaceful, very large protest, and then it devolved very quickly. Now, the police has been criticized in recent days for saying that these are riots.
Over the last week, thousands across Seattle have come together to raise their voices, share their anger and grief, and to demand justice, not just for George Floyd or Breonna Taylor, but for all of those who have lost their lives before them. I am thankful for these demonstrators for sharing their voices, for demanding more from all of us in a position of power, including myself and the Chief of Police.
And last night, in the face of the rocks and bottles and projectiles, your police officers demonstrated restraint and they didn't use any force. The community needs to know that as your police chief, I will speak out and I will condemn officers who abuse their power, and I will hold them accountable.
Say her name!
Seattle protests to end racial inequality now in its 2nd week.
We need to stop just talking about it.
Community leaders are making sure the city hears their specific demands.
All of this momentum has been amazing, but we now need people to understand what it is we're asking for.
One of the biggest changes this rally calls for is investment in Black communities.
It's evident people in Seattle are outraged by George Floyd's death in Minneapolis, and emotional protesters marched through the streets of downtown on Friday. This heated demonstration kicks off a weekend of protests against police brutality. The city's hoping this weekend's protests play out more peacefully, because while tensions may be high, we are in the midst of a pandemic.
Chief Best also ordered officers to move mourning bands to make sure it does not cover badge information.
And the scene at Westlake Center tonight, just a little snippet of what you can expect out here tomorrow.
So if you're just tuning in, we're at the Doctors for Justice March.
Jenny Durkin. Dale Constantine.
Can you hear us?
Jay Inslee.
Can you hear us?
When I say power to the people, you say all power to the people. Power to the people.
All power to the people.
If there was one moment where I became galvanized, this would be it. I had filmed from this spot for hours, and without warning, a dozen riot officers approached me.
To be at the site all day today. They said it's been okay for here to be all day today. I've been over. You see me, man. I've been here for a second. Here.
Yeah, just stay this on that side and we're cool. Not a problem, okay?
Yeah, we're good. So the National Guard has been deployed. This is America. This is your country. This is your city. If you love your nation, if you love the Constitution, if you believe in basic rights and freedom for all citizens, you need to be here.
Seattle Police Department, you're committed to peacefully doing this. Please move back.
Like the previous 5 days, officers on the Western Barricade were tapped out, and new officers wearing gas masks moved to the line. Protesters moved the barricade about 5 feet, but were otherwise peaceful. SPD was just looking for an excuse.
I don't know if they're doing flashbangs or they're doing tear gas. flashbangs. One just went off maybe 15 feet from me. You might have even caught that in the camera. One just went off about 10 feet away from me. So what they're doing now is they're trying to box us in. So they're basically, what SPD is doing right now with their bikes is they are pushing the people into the flashbang grenades. SPD is actively pushing the people into the line of fire. If I wasn't here seeing this, I wouldn't believe this. Right? They are pushing us into the line of fire. So in other words, the flashbangs are going off behind me, and I'm being pushed into them. They've deployed tear gas. So they've pushed the people into the tear gas. My eyes are burning.
The injured headed west towards Broadway and the medic station located in the outdoor dining area of Rancho Bravo. There was anger, disbelief, and confusion. What people didn't know is that the police and National Guard had a plan, and that plan was to push everyone west of Broadway.
Really gotten big. Water! We need water! You got to tilt your head back. You got to tilt your head back. Open your eyes.
I'm sailing. I'm sailing. Hey, this is sailing. This is sailing. I got this. Fuck you guys! You okay?
You're going to be okay.
Hey, I have saline. Does she need an eye wash?
Yeah, she
Here, come with me.
Let's go. I'll help you, bro. I got her on one side. Let's go.
You'll be all right. You'll be good. You'll be good.
You're going to be okay. You're going to be okay. We're not going to let anything happen to you. We're not going to let anything happen to you. You're going to be okay. They are continuing to set off tear gas. There is a medic station. I'm not going to show faces there because police in other cities have been targeting people in the medic stations. And now what's happening is they are still throwing flashbangs and tear gas.
It was OC being deployed, and people blinded and gasping for breath kept streaming by me. On a battlefield, this would be considered a war crime, overrunning a medical station. But this wasn't a battlefield. This was an American city, and a civilian police force had declared war on its citizens.
It appears that, the aid station here is in danger, and I think I'm at the point I want to help move patients, because that's the priority at the moment.
They're moving in. You guys are going to have to move this whole shit.
That's right.
This whole shit's got to go. Tear gas is slowing down. You guys got to move.
They're not going to stop. We got to start moving them out. We've got to move her. I'm going to help her. I'm the same guy that helped you. Do you remember my voice? You remember my voice? I'm not going to let anything happen to you. Do you understand? But you got to keep moving. You got to be strong. You got to be brave, okay? Are you with me? Just squeeze my hand. That's how I know you're with me. I'm not going to let anything happen to you. Don't let go of my hand. Just keep moving. You got to keep moving. All right? I know this is hard. Squeeze my hand if you understand. Okay, I got you. I'm not going to let anything happen to you. I will put my body between you and anything. I won't let anything happen to you.
Fuck Jenny Durkin!
Did anything rise to this level of this massive show of force? And the answer to that is no.
The response seemed too quick to escalate, and too quick to deploy flashbangs, pepper spray, and the deployment of the National Guard.
The standoff situation at the East Precinct is like nothing I've ever seen before. The East Precinct has become a dangerous flashpoint.
It's an area that has bedeviled law enforcement as protests wear on,
significantly reducing the number of officers that are both on the line and in the immediate area.
After meeting with protesters, Black Lives Matter representatives, and faith leaders, Mayor Durkin says she'll issue an emergency order requiring officers to wear body cameras during protests. Officers who cover their badges, she says, will be punished.
Things got heated between the protesters as well as officers.
Just hours after Mayor Durkin and Chief Best said they would take steps to de-escalate, Capitol Hill once again became shrouded in clouds of tear gas. Officers fired a flashbang grenade directly into the chest of an unarmed stationary protester, almost killing her.
Yesterday as well, and disputes this claim from Seattle police and said things were peaceful throughout the night and no one was throwing anything. There used to be a police officer barricade of officers standing on the other side of that barricade. They shut that down about an hour ago. Now they're just those 3 Seattle police vehicles.
We're learning that officers received an email from the assistant chief that said that the decision has been made to allow demonstrators to march past the East Precinct today, which goes to show why they're working so hard right now to try to fortify that building. We know that the Seattle Fire Department has also been working to look at the fire suppression.
We're not going to evacuate or abandon the East Precinct. We will be hardening the East Precinct facility by boarding up the exterior windows, having the Seattle Fire Department evaluate the fire suppression systems, and applying fire retardants to the building exterior and installing fencing. This is an exercise in trust and de-escalation.
City of Seattle came in, boarded up, fenced off, put in these concrete barriers. They put in some water-filled barriers that have basically all already been moved.
Seattle police abandoned the East Precinct, and for about an hour, no one knew what to expect. Then it became clear. Protesters were not going to let anyone harm the East Precinct building.
If you see a person of color being targeted by violence, we demand that you step in and help them. We need to make sure that we are not unfairly blamed for any damages to this building, to the Seattle Police Department. We demand that if you see somebody vandalizing this building, you record them so that they can be held accountable for their own personal actions.
Yeah!
Seattle councilperson Sawant started to address the crowd, but she was stopped when it started to sound more like a campaign speech. She was then challenged to explain her stand on defunding or abolishing the police.
I will give you an answer. And if you know anything about me and my organization, Socialist Alternative, what you will know is that you may not agree with us on certain things. You may agree with us on certain things, you may disagree. But what you will always get from us is honesty. I'm not going to bullshit you. Okay? That's the starting point.
Okay, wait. So I gotta, listen y'all, hold up. I'm doing this for a reason. So look, horseman, right? What about those demands? Sorry.
The racial stereotyping shocked the crowd. The man, who went by the street name Magic, would never hold a microphone and chop again.
That's the reason you will not catch me saying abolish police or defunding 100%. Not because I don't believe in it, but because I know what it will take to win it. So let's, and another item of no bullshit. Winning 50% defund is going to be goddamn hard.
The fear that entire blocks of Seattle would be burned to the ground were unfounded. Instead, a 6-block area became a place to teach, to learn, and to share.
I'm Nikita Oliver. I'm hosting today. What's good? I'm the
be hosting today with the homie Roe v. Free. Shout out Roe v. Free. As black folks, we know that our struggle against white supremacy, against capitalism, against patriarchy, against this oppressor is inextricably intertwined with our Native relatives.
I want to update you all on the situation at the East Precinct. The decision to board up the precinct, our home, the first precinct I worked in, was something I have been holding off. You should know, leaving the precinct was not my decision. You fought for days to protect it. I asked you to stand on that line, day in and day out, to be pelted with projectiles, to be screamed at, threatened, and in some cases hurt. Then to have a change of course nearly 2 weeks in, it seems like an insult to you and our community. Ultimately, the city had other plans for the building and relented to severe public pressure. I'm angry about how this all came about. I understand that my comments in this message may be leaked to the public, but I'm not concerned about that. I stand by what I'm saying. We had solid information to believe that anti-government groups would destroy the precinct once we left, whether through vandalism or arson.
Right now, it's entirely peaceful. In fact, you can see these protesters behind me. And in fact, let's pan the camera around, Chris, because it really has the feel of a street festival. They're serving food down there. They're giving out free food. There's medical tents. People are camping out. They have movies at night. There's live music.
Durkin said she's in no big rush to reclaim the spot, even though the chief said she wants to put officers back in the precinct.
A new war was brewing, a war of words. Within City Hall, leaders disagreed with each other, and in the White House, a president sought to make Seattle part of his campaign platform.
Continue to protest peacefully while also getting ingress and egress.
Yet the mayor said she made the call to remove barriers, which had been the site of violent confrontations.
I think it was the right decision. I think it is clear that the removing the barriers was critical to removing the flashpoint.
Call in the National Guard, call me. We'll have so many people, more people than you have to dominate the streets. You can't let what's happening happen. It's called dominate the street.
So I think he says dominate because he is totally does not understand what is happening in America, and he is desperately trying to start the old fights and the old divisions that put him in power in the first place.
How long do you think Seattle in those few blocks looks like this?
I don't know. We could have the summer of love.
Their message is straightforward, that police should stay away. Here's what President Trump said about that in a new interview.
If they don't straighten that situation out, we're going to straighten it out.
And what do you mean by that?
What I mean is very simple. We're not going to let Seattle be occupied by anarchists. The woman, I don't know, has she ever done this before? How can you?
In Seattle.
Oh, it's pathetic. No, we're not going to let this happen in Seattle. If we have to go in, we're going to go in.
Right to challenge authority and government is fundamental to who we are as Americans.
The building is renamed the Seattle People Department, and the 6 blocks surrounding it have been dubbed Capitol Hill Autonomous Zone.
The people recognize that this building is the people's. You know, we pay for it with our taxes.
Surrounded by barricades, police aren't allowed, while demonstrators hold meetings, set up clinics, and offer free food.
We didn't get our taco trucks in every corner, but darn it, we have tacos in the Chaz. And SPD is gone. And I stood here on Monday contemplating what did this strip of road up here symbolize. And now what we have here is just something completely amazing.
He's like, hello, human. Oh, yes. Look at this face, malcontents. If you don't know what this can't stoop thing, I think that was Raz giving an interview there, Gregory. I do. Can't stoop is in reference to a Donald Trump tweet. There's your violence in the Chaz. We have a dog barking. Hey, dog. It's like going through the turnstiles.
Black Lives Matter. Or I'm not a leader. I'm just a black person that's tired of going through shit. I don't want to be the leader. I don't want to be none of that.
I am right here on the very, very edge of CHOP, and we'll do a walkthrough because there's been some significant changes that have happened in the area. The city of Seattle, the fire department, police department, and mayor's office, working with a loose coalition of organizers, as there are no leaders, agreed to modify the footprint of Chaz to enable vehicle traffic for deliveries to business so that they could get right to the doors, and police and fire access for emergency.
No racist police, no justice, no peace, no racist police.
Who stood, struggled, and died for us before we even knew about this struggle. And so today I say, you stand on the shoulders of many ancestors, and with this many people in the room, tell your ancestors, this is a new day. You know, we don't really care about the love. We don't mind. Yeah, we'd like you to love us, but what we demand is that you respect us. On behalf of our ancestors, on behalf of our ancestors, I remember George Floyd. I remember Charlene Lyles. I remember Shay Taylor. I remember Tamir Rice. I remember Mike Brown. I remember all of those black children and young people who died at the hands of the police. I remember all the people who were in these streets.
Protest organizers asked that on Juneteenth, only black videographers cover the events in CHOP. My producer asked me to go to Jimi Hendrix Park in the Rainier Valley. In the evening when our team was done, we were exhausted but celebratory. If CHOP had an apex, the early evening hours of June 19 would be it. But our joy would be short-lived.
What's going on? What's happening?
Well, one victim remains in critical condition at Harborview Medical Center. And police tell us this is an ongoing investigation. Representatives from CHOP sent us a statement saying the altercation may have previous history, as it seems the situation escalated because of gang affiliations. They blamed standard operating procedure for any delay in medical treatment because ambulance crews waited for police to secure the scene. They went on to say no one within CHOP denied entry to PD within any organizational capacity.
For nearly 2 weeks, people have been gathering on Capitol Hill. Many are there to continue their protests, to build community and demand change. Over the days, tens of thousands of people have peacefully gathered or visited Capitol Hill. During the day, there have been no major incidents. But we know it is very different at night, particularly in recent nights. The cumulative impacts of the gatherings and protests and the nighttime atmosphere and violence has led to increasingly difficult circumstances.
I still have 2 bullets in me.
DeJuan Young remembers seeing the aftermath of the first unrelated shooting early Saturday at the Capitol Hill Occupied Protest Zone, or CHOP, that claimed the life of 19-year-old Lorenzo Anderson. He said he was nearby at 11th and Pike outside of CHOP when the group approached him.
The verbiage that they said was, "Hold this," and shot me. I got shot outside the protest zone, and you still didn't respond.
DeJuan told us SPD's handling of the shooting from the beginning
I'm scared.
has him worried about how it will end.
Hey there, Malcontents. This here is the Malcontent. How's everybody doing? And welcome. We are at Capitol Hill and Seattle CHOP. In any quest for change, you have to win hearts and minds. And of course, with everything that's been going on, hearts and minds have not been won. I was talking to somebody who, was on the security team, and there's frustration that's been expressed that I agree with in the frustration department, that the attempt to open things up and kind of create these access lanes has really backfired, because what they turned out to be is these are turned into shooting lanes, and that's what people have been using them for. Yeah, I guess I fall into that camp. Most people, as I said, are in Cal Anderson Park. It's undeniable. The tenor and the tone has changed. The atmosphere has changed. The mission hasn't changed.
It is time for people to go home. Those were the words of the mayor of Seattle.
It is hard to answer very simple questions about what is going on here because it is a complex situation with a lot of layers to it. I was really struck when I walked up to the zone from this side and saw this list of demands here.
I know you're tired, but the time is today. The time is right now to apply the wrath of God and apply the pressure of unity from a united people of all color that understands when wrong is wrong and right is right. I know you're tired of justifying why Black Lives Matter in a system where Black lives are treated with no rights. All lives cannot matter if there is no matter for Black lives. Every single one of you is tired, but we, together collectively, we will not stop fighting.
March with us! We're not done yet! We're not done yet! March with us! March with us! We're not done yet! We're not done yet! Out of your homes and into the streets! Out of your homes and into the streets! Out of your homes and into the streets! Out of your homes and into the streets!
None of these demands are negotiable. We will go to their houses.
Yeah.
We will be at their front doors.
Yeah.
Every council member, the mayor, even the governor.
Feel me?
We don't give a fuck. We need to make it happen. That's all I have to say.
This is the march that went from Capitol Hill to the West Precinct and now to Interstate 5. So I guess my understanding is the highway is closed for 10 miles.
SDOT crews arrived early this morning to continue dismantling CHOP, but protesters would not let them do the work. One person lay in the street, others sat on barricades. The crews backed off, waiting for a signal that they could return.
What do you think is the future of the CHOP? Do you think it's necessary for this movement?
Yes.
I think that a lot of people want to just dismantle it because of all of the negativity that it's received and just all of the seeming lack of direction or the multitude of agendas that are out there and the lack of organization. But I think that we're all here, talking about CHOP. People are getting paid to document CHOP. People are flying from Canada to check on CHOP. So there is clearly a bunch of power here, and I think that leverage is important. So Do I want to stand out here and be a CHOP warrior all day? No. Do I want people to start associating me with that and forgetting about, why we're even out here and start, and just make it about CHOP? No. Do I think people being out here and protesting? I mean, maybe even delete the name and, we're out here protesting. I think that it is important because it's just shown that it is. It's shown that this has got results. For better or for worse, there have been results. And people are watching. The world is watching, and that's what people wanted. That's what most of the protesters wanted, the world to watch, and then accountability to be had. And they knew that accountability wouldn't be had if the world wasn't watching, if there wasn't a PR battle being had. If they didn't need to clean up their PR, and we didn't have the leverage as people for them to try and be like, okay, actually now we can't just do whatever we want. It's not undercover. We have to start addressing these issues. So I think just like walking away because the mayor says, all right guys, I think it's time to go home now. It's been a good run. You can't do that. Even though I don't want to be out here, now it makes me want to be like, all right, well, you can't do that. Yeah.
Now you want to be here.
But especially because she began it saying that, she defended CHOP and said that it was a love fest. It's more like a love fest.
Summer of love.
Summer of love.
Yeah.
But then following it up with saying, okay, kids, it's time to go home. Now that makes that first statement so more disingenuous, so more condescending.
You're a fucking fascist. She rolled down the window and said, love the shoes. Sure. And rolled it up. And that was kind of fierce. I'm kind of mad.
Would you not in that tone, just to say what you would have said to her, other than?
No, I probably, if I had the chance, I would have hurt her. I think she deserves that.
Yeah.
She's a fascist.
She's absolutely hurt us.
She has hurt us. She has used chemical warfare against us. We're out here every day.
Seattle Fire Chief Harold Scoggins exited a closed-door meeting with the leaders of the Capitol Hill occupied protest zone and was soon tailed by protesters still angry with Seattle police over the deadly shooting here last weekend.
The fire department, I love you guys. The ambulance, I love you guys. But they are making your jobs harder, and you need to hold them accountable for that.
Guys, don't fuck with me. Don't play me like that. I've been out here every day at that fucking co-op, and you weren't fucking ever in front of it. So
I'm not a part of the co-op.
I know, but then why are your people filming?
There's no co-op to film. This is not about the co-op.
So why is Durkin is about to, in Kumbaya, make a permanent space for the co-op that is run by your people. Not weird? Not fucking weird, Raz?
We heard Chief Best. We heard Chief Best talking about how she wanted to reimagine policing. We hear the mayor talking about how she wants to change things. It's up to the citizens of the city of Seattle to hold the politicians accountable. So if there's no accountability, I don't think there'll be change.
On Saturday, June 27th, protests continued throughout the city. Thousands marched to the South Precincts where right-wing protesters were waiting and attempted to disrupt the speeches being made by black leaders and black people. This had become a common theme throughout Seattle as the days turned into weeks in the summer of 2020.
System, for the black youth and the failure of the public education system, for black sex workers, for black undocumented folks held in the camps. Rise up
Barricades remained untouched all over the zone, but city equipment could arrive Sunday to start clearing some. The mayor suggested a series of steps that she believes can be taken in the coming days, including the removal of the barriers to create more access. She also believes in the planning for some of the long-term changes to Cal Anderson, including art installations and the community garden. It went on to say that police would not be back here this weekend.
What the protesters have done is they have cut the hooks on the concrete blocks. 1 second. It's a garbage truck. It's funny, like a truck comes and like everybody just kind of like stops and looks. We're just kind of waiting and wondering if SDOT, when they're coming, if they're going to be coming. I would have guessed they would have come in the morning, just because I think, you know, there's less people around. It's going to be easier for them. But no idea if they're going to be coming or not.
That this demonstration started at Magnuson, then was joined by another group that had been marching near UW. Councilmember Shama Sawant was also here at this rally and spoke to the crowd, listing their demands and calling on Mayor Durkin to resign. Now, it is not clear when the decision was made or how it was made to make their way towards the mayor's home, but here's an organizer explaining the reason for doing so.
We came down to Jenny Durkin's mansion to bring the demands of the movement and of the families who have been impacted by police violence to her doorstep, as she seems to not be able to hear our demands any other way.
When you look here, there is a fair number of tents. There's certainly more tents here than what there was a few days ago. Zoom in here is behind these aren't tents that people are staying in. This is kind of like food and meeting spaces and stuff. On the other side of there's really no more tents on that side than there's probably ever been at any point of this.
And I heard a lot of commotion, people calling for the ambulance, and I worked my way over here and saw two male individuals on the floor. Both of them were unconscious at the time, and they were both suffering from gunshot wounds.
Absolutely, we want people to move out of the area. Continue, your peaceful demonstration in a place where you're not affecting public safety. I have said this multiple times. It is taking us 3.5 times longer to get here. We have a fire station that is less than 2 blocks from here. They cannot go into this area. I
asked for someone for a tourniquet, and I immediately placed a tourniquet on one of the male's upper arm. He had a gunshot wound to his upper left bicep, both the entry and exit wound. He also had a upper thigh left gunshot wound, and I applied a hemostatic bandage wrap to the leg. And we laid him all across our laps in the back seat and drove him to the nearest trauma center.
I don't get my consent.
Here we go. Found a sign. I love this. Daddy changed the world. I posted some things. Mississippi wouldn't be getting rid of their state flag if it wasn't for George Floyd. 2,000 Reddit groups filled with hate and racism wouldn't have been yanked down if it wasn't for George Floyd. You wouldn't have this advertiser ban that's coming up starting tomorrow on Facebook if it wasn't for George Floyd. On June 6th, which is one of the days that pepper spray and all this other stuff was deployed, while all the screaming and yelling and the police and the squaring off was going on, this artwork was actually being painted. The dude was hired by this company, Stout, to come in and paint over these boards and create not all of the artwork you hear, but to kind of do these African flag colors of the red, black, and green. And so you had this guy painting while there were thousands of protesters here, and probably 60 people from Seattle Police and another 60 to 100 people of the National Guard backing them up. It was like, and I was live streaming at the time, and I was like, this is dystopian. I know Mayor Durkin has said that they were going to maintain these gardens after this is over. Right now, my view on Mayor Durkin is I'll believe it when I see it. Here, there's tomatoes, there's corn. As a matter of fact, this actually looks like what they call a Three Sisters or a Four Sisters plot. I mean, this is just, look at this. I'm in shock. I mean, you'd think I was at some local farmer's market or something here. This is really amazing what has been set up back here. The fist is still here.
You and I talked a little bit yesterday.
Our security, they are the runners, making sure that our spaces are safe. You don't. No, they are breaking the bikes, bitch. That's what they are. You don't get to tell me. You don't get to tell me what kind of bikes my people are fucking riding. What I'm telling you, it's an expression. I call her a bitch. Bitch is a her. It's my friend.
If we kind of look over here through the fence right now, where the garden area is, same thing. There is a lot less tense than were here on Friday of last week. If you and I talked, we would probably agree up to 80% on the disease and the symptoms. Where we're not going to agree is the cure.
Right.
But if we sat and had a reasonable conversation, we'd probably get to 50 to 60% on the cure.
Man, I like
and
that.
Sometimes you were going to stand back and go, holy shit, you know what? These bastards in charge are using that 40% that we don't agree with against us so that we don't get together and fix their shit.
Oh, yeah.
Now, this morning, an executive order came from the mayor basically executing this operation.
You have 5 minutes to disperse.
I want you guys to picture your daughter's faces on mine right now.
See just the level of buildup that the police have done to stay in this zone. Apparently, there were some bigger vehicles that they brought in. We've heard about a deployment of pepper spray.
Once the protesters were gone, the cleanup began. Chief Carmen Best and officers went back into the East Precinct, and this is the first time they have been inside there since the 8th.
Some of the leadership is to try to find enough concessions from the city to get things like slashing the police budget, to get things like ending qualified immunity, and just more reforms in the city. But some of the protesters really wanted to keep the precinct as long as possible.
Very cool. But he said that his producer.
I told her, I just walked up. She said she'd give me a few extra minutes. So.
Twitter user Eli Grady shared this video of SPD making an arrest last night around 5:30. He's bothered by that tackle and the position of the officer's knee.
Hey, what's that call?
Carter shot and tweeted this video this morning. He says Seattle police would not allow him to go to his apartment without showing ID.
Hang on, either have officer. A diatribe out there.
Officer, please.
Or I can walk you with ID to your location.
Officer, the thing is that I don't have ID. Or I can arrest you
for being in here illegally. What would you rather?
I don't have an ID because I don't have a driver's license.
Exploded fast. I don't know exactly what caused this, but SPD, as I was just kind of setting up, pushed back hard on the line.
July 2nd was chaotic on Broadway. Distrust among protesters was in the air. People who hadn't been seen in days or weeks suddenly reappeared, and differing agendas started to emerge.
money. No, dumb as fuck. They're not gonna arrest shit. They're stupid.
There's the 12th Precinct building. Right there. Lights are on. This isn't by any means over. You know, that there's all sorts of protests that have fanned out across the city. People had relatives calling them, you know, like, oh my God, I heard Seattle's burning down. Are you okay? What do you do? Do you need help? And seriously, we were all like going, what the hell are you talking about? This is what CHOP looks like. Here's the real story. Is anybody that told you, like, you know, the city is in flames, it's going to take forever to rebuild stuff, the whole area has been destroyed, what is like, as you can see, most of the graffiti has already been washed away. Diaz Love was, wait. On I-5, people were hit on the freeway? Oh, for fuck's sake. So the people were hit in the southbound lanes.
They already know who did it
Yeah, they caught him.
Oh, they've already caught him.
They already caught him?
Yeah.
King County Metro said that both lanes of freeway were closed, north and south, that they do have barricades, much like the ones up here, where the BPD or SP or the Highway Patrol is blocking off the barricades. So somehow a vehicle made its way onto the freeway, came at an incredibly high speed, and what it did was they had two vehicles with the march that were blocking.
Because they have the vehicles
follow vehicles.
Yeah.
Right. Well, the car made its way around one, still going at least 50, 60 miles per hour, and then fishtailed it, and then just smashed into everyone here in the median, and they went flying up and landed in the middle lane of traffic. Actually,
We were down by the East Precinct. Yeah, we were down by the East Precinct when we saw it happening, and we ran up
the Union Dearborn HOV
East
sign.
Precinct. We were waiting for the marchers to come back.
What we know right now, 3 people hit. Concrete Media, Converge Media were both on the road. The driver of the vehicle is in custody that did this crime. The driver intentionally hit the protesters. The protesters were actually not even on in a travel lane. They were in the median. They were over here, apparently, about where this police cruiser is. And the driver went around not only the police barricades, but the protesters organized and have vehicles come up, and the state police are aware of this, to also be blocked vehicles. What we're told is, and I guess what happened in the video, and I haven't seen the video yet, is the vehicle came around the stopped vehicles here, then swerved to about where this police cruiser is to intentionally hit the protesters.
I guess in the big scope of things, there is good news. 2 people hit. I watched the video. Sorry. It's hard to watch.
Summer season. Oh yeah. Summer season. Oh yeah. Summer season. Oh yeah. Summer season. Oh yeah. Summer season. Oh yeah.
Malcontent News is a team of journalists, activists, and researchers with 3 key missions. A commitment to show an unfiltered view of the before, during, and after of key events, live, as it happens. To defend the First Amendment using our rights of a free press. And to amplify the voices of underrepresented individuals including Black, Indigenous, persons of color, and the LGBTQIA+ community. Our team is committed to seeking equality for all and holding those in power accountable. The easiest way to support Malcontent News is to bookmark our website at malcontentnews.com, like and follow us on Facebook, subscribe to us on YouTube, and follow us on Twitter, TikTok, Twitch, Instagram, and in the Google News app. To provide financial support, you can become a patron, make a one-time donation through Venmo, or link your Twitch account to your Amazon Prime account and use your free subscription to subscribe to Malcontent News. Thank you for supporting independent journalism and for being a malcontent.
Welcome back, Jennifer.
Yes. I feel bad because I could not engage in the comments because, as you know, I was naughty on Facebook last night and caught a 24-hour ban. So it wouldn't let me do any commenting.
Yes. And you wear that badge with honor, as I tell everybody who goes into Zuckerberg jail. Yeah. I have been there myself.
But I've only got an hour left, and look out, Facebook, because I'm coming back.
Lot of comments, Jennifer, and a lot of discussion that was going on. Some polarizing figures. This is an opportunity, I would say, I'd like to do a little bit of an unpack with you. And malcontents, if you forgive me, if you see me looking over like this, it's because I'm looking at your comments. We could do a brief Q&A. Jennifer, I don't want to go too deep, right? I mean, we're about 20 minutes over for the evening. We knew we were running over tonight because the documentary is an hour and 8 minutes.
Yeah.
One of the things that jumps out at me, like the first thing, is if there's somebody's record of what they said on the record and their actions on the record that have not aged well at all, it's Carmen Best.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And I think, too, I think that kind of adds more fuel to the fire with this recent tech scandal, right? Because you have to wonder what conversations were going on behind the scenes as they're making, some of these remarks, right? So, yeah, I think it just raises a whole new interesting set of questions about those texts.
It was a real revelation. She makes this statement. It's an internal statement to the police officers in the Seattle Police Department on June 11th, where she blames the city on the decision to leave the East Precinct. But she's now retired Chief Best, and in a podcast last week where she was interviewed in depth, she said it was a command staff decision from within the Seattle Police Department. It makes her statement on June 11th that the word is a lie.
Yeah, no, I absolutely. And again, it goes back to what's in these texts. Like, I'm so curious now after watching this. I was curious before because I'm like, what's going on here? And it's super shady. But I'm so much more intrigued now about what was going on behind the scenes and who was calling all the shots.
There's a lot that ended up on the cutting room floor. Some of it was because we didn't have access to the video. One of the things I think people know, if they know me, I look at other streamers, other creators, that is their IP. And because they are a small creator, I'm not going to go ahead and grab their IP. certainly the Proud Boys within CHOP, some of the fights that happened in there that were cut out. We have some video, and frankly, Jennifer, could have made this 2 hours long with everything that we have. Reviewed about 230 hours of video, and there's close to 1,000 still images. Another thing, a lot of those still images tonight, Jennifer, that is the first time anybody has seen, not all of them, but a lot of them, that anybody has ever seen some of those pictures.
Yeah, no, this was definitely a huge investment on your part, but I think it's a great document for the historical record. And I think it does a really good job of telling a nuanced story about the aftermath of like Seattle's reckoning with ongoing racial injustice and inequality that, you know, really came to light after the murder of George Floyd by Derek Chauvin. So I think it's such a useful thing. And I know it's a labor of love for you and you put all of this time into it. It's something that's so important to you, but it has so much resonance beyond that. So you should be really, really proud of the work you did there.
That end shot of that man, I have no idea what his name is. That shot was on June 28th. He walked up to me to talk. I was streaming at the time, but I didn't have my good camera going at the moment. And he was an older gentleman, much older, probably somebody in their late 60s or in their 70s. Yeah. And he carried this energy that is very hard for me to describe. And when he turned around and I saw the back of his shirt, I asked him if he could stop and let me set up my camera before he walked away. And he actually started growing a little impatient with me, and I was afraid I wasn't going to get this shot. What I thought I was going to get was just a picture of him walking away. And as he walked, he put his fist in the air. And I knew in that moment, like, that's my hero shot because of the shirt and his age and the energy. And see, that's something that people didn't see. They don't see this conversation that I had. This is a man who has been fighting for equality since the day he was born. And I think he saw hope in what was happening. But I also think in my conversation that he could see the flame was flickering in those final days. There's another thing which I don't know if people caught. Renee actually appears in that closing shot, and she is on screen right, and that was just serendipity.
Yes, yes. I know we had talked about that before, so I knew to look for that towards the end, because you know you've been during our editorial meetings on and off. We've kind of been discussing this the documentary, so yeah. So it's good to see members of the team all there together. Hi, Renee.
Yeah, Renee, I actually think appears in there like 2 or 3 times. It's, I would say if people go back and rewatch it, they could play Where's Waldo with Renee. With Renee. Spot the Renee. Renee is in there several times.
Yeah, it turned into a drinking game every time you see Renee take a shot.
That would be a good drinking game because you wouldn't kill yourself, but you'd be pretty happy by the end of the, if you caught all of it, you'd be pretty happy at the end, but you're not going to kill yourself.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Jennifer, what was the moment for you? What was the one thing?
You want me to pick one thing, David?
Or pick 3 things.
So I think during like the way in which people come together to help each other during protests when SPD was using excessive force, and you have this woman that you know, are basically caring for. And I think it's just such a testament to like, not only the excessive use of force by the Seattle Police Department and the ways in which they were trying to quash this movement, but the way in which people come together at times like these and like help one another, I think is a really moving thing. As you pointed out, the comments by Carmen Best, not aging well. I think there's so many pivotal things within this documentary that are so important. It's hard to just pick a few. The documenting of, the taking down of CHOP. There's so much stuff, David, like I could go on, so you may want to interject.
The moment for me where there are moments in there that I think everybody will watch that, and if you have any shred of humanity, you're going to get the feels. Certainly the story of Summer Taylor and Dia's love, which we really tried to show that with dignity and respect. That's an area that I think if you have any shred of human kindness, you're going to have the feels. But the one for me, the moment where I still get the chills, and when we were working on post-production in the studio, and I would, hey, come in and, see the cuts and let's see what was done here. And I put my fist in the air. Mm-hmm. Every time I see it is that street performer. Mm-hmm. And when he says, I know you're tired. There's so many people, Jennifer, that in some ways angry is not the right word, but frustrated. Mm-hmm. Because here we are a year later and I'm like, where are you? I don't understand. And I'm not expecting people to be on the streets. And I know, as we noted in the documentary, some people have moved to activism. Some people have moved to politics. Some people have moved to mutual aid. But there's other people. There were comments like, what happened to TK? TK is literally one more hit from the head from being a walking CTE case. And this is why TK had to pull back. Between the skull fracture that SPD gave her, and then TK was in a terrible car accident a couple of months later, while essentially still recovering from the skull fracture. And anybody in the medical community knows this isn't good, to have multiple closed head brain injuries like this back to back. So I'm not addressing people like TK or Tati was out at a protest not too long ago. But there's other people that I can't name, but I would recognize their faces. And I'm like, where are you? And I know, I hear people, they're tired and they're burned out. Oh, there's protester burnout. I saw something at a work function I was doing last week that talked about, burnout in the protest community and fighting for social justice. And there's one thing about self-care and to step back for self-care, but they positioned it as burnout is almost an excuse because racism doesn't take a break. And it's okay to take a break if you are broken. But if you go through, George Floyd died, so this is horrible, so I must do something. So I'm going to do something performative, like a hashtag and make my Facebook picture black, and I'm going to show up to a march or two. And then maybe I'll show up to the 150 or 300 day march, but then I'm going to say I'm burned out. So they're just waiting for the next George Floyd. We're going to learn about Manny Ellis. And if there's going to be any charges tomorrow, Manny Ellis's last words almost 15 months ago, Jennifer, were, I can't breathe, sir.
Yes, I know.
Where is everyone?
I know, and I think this is a common frustration, and I see it a lot with people who were very active and continue to be active on my social media, that they're equally as frustrated that, so much has kind of people have become complacent. And I feel like this is not a frustration that's, just yours. This is something that a lot of people, especially BIPOC people in my social media are really feeling. There was so much enthusiasm, particularly from white people after the murder of George Floyd to come out, Black Lives Matter, do all of this stuff. And now it's where's everybody at now? Where's everybody gone? Is Biden's president. So, you got your liberal president. And so now you think everything's going to be fine and you're just content to sit at home because Trump's not president anymore. So there's still a lot of frustration out there for this kind of, the way in which the enthusiasm died down and is continue to be at this very static low level.
we'll see what happens on the subject of performative and something real action that people can do. Officer Jeff Nelson is the only police officer. This might change tomorrow, but I'm not holding my breath. Because my experience has been in watching history and being a documentarian of it, when there's police misconduct, if there's criminal charges, it comes like that, particularly when you have a case like Manny Ellis where there is so much outside evidence, and it's not like they had to dig to try to figure out what happened. And when it comes really slow like this,
it's not
the odds are that we're going to have a half an hour press conference like we had over the Blake shooting in Kenosha, and this big long explanation on why we're not going to do any charges. Anyway, I'm segueing. Former Officer Jeff Nelson, by the way, still on the payroll at the Auburn Police Department as they continue to delay his trial, making almost $100,000 a year. Jennifer, I would love to have a murder 2 conviction hanging over my head and draw on a salary of $100,000 a year. Wouldn't that just be amazing? To the point of where is everybody? There is going to be a vigil for Jesse Saray in Auburn on May 31. The event is on our Facebook page. We're going to call it out again tomorrow. We are going to live stream it. Please, if you can't go, watch the live stream and amplify the invite. The Saray family, point blank, is not feeling supported by this community. And this is one, I keep saying it, I don't understand. Where is the community on this one? This is the only officer in the state of Washington who has ever been charged under I-940.
Yep. Yeah, and I don't understand where the lack of enthusiasm is for this either. He's Asian American Pacific Islander. He's I know we've talked about this before, but like
we could like Shizcaf just put, just show up. It's an hour. It's an hour. We ran a survey on our news site. Most people are planning to stay home. Like, if you're vaccinated and you're wearing a mask, you're kind of out of excuses. I mean, I get some of you are immunocompromised. I get that, right? But for the vast majority of people, thank you so much, Courtney, for that link. Facebook family be able to see that. I think Facebook posts go out through the Restream client to all the other channels, but unfortunately, the other channels don't go to Facebook. So, Courtney, thank you for sharing that, and I believe that goes out to all of the channels. I hope that people will think about what they watched. If there were 3 goals that I had here, Jennifer, number 1 goal was to document history. And, there's a thought that I had on that. And there's a couple of people that I know have been holding off on releasing a documentary like this for Seattle, because the hope has been that someone in the BIPOC community, because we know there were BIPOC creators working on this, would have come forward at this point. And we wanted to give space to the BIPOC creator communities. It's been a year since the nation's learned the name George Floyd, and it felt like to wait any longer, this would lose relevance. So documenting the history is important. There's a lot of history I forgot. And in watching this, I was like, oh, that's right. I totally forgot about that. I totally forgot about this person. I totally forgot about that incident. The second thing that I hope, Jennifer, is that people remember the struggle is real. This isn't over. There was a story in Crosscut that for the Seattle Police Department, we're probably in the state of as good as it gets.
Yeah.
I think for most people. And when I say most people, I don't mean 90%. I get it's 55 or 60%. But for most people in Seattle, I think if this is good as it gets, the answer is hell no.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
And the third thing is I wanted people to re-engage and have an emotional connection with this common past and this this trauma. This was a trauma experience. And I know like some people were saying I had a hard time watching this and all that.
Yeah.
I hope for some that this provided at least some sense of closure for the events that happened a year ago.
Yeah, no, I think those are 3 good objectives to have. And I do hope that BIPOC creators come out with additional documentaries, because no documentary is going to be the same. And the great thing about history and looking at historical records and documents is that you need to weave a bunch of them together to get a whole nuanced picture of history. So I encourage as many people that have that kind of content, especially BIPOC creators and, you know, people that are going to narrate it from a BIPOC perspective, to come out with this stuff, because this is going to be great, great historical documents for people to view 20, 30 years down the road when they're writing this history.
The thing too, that if you go back and you rewatch, you see so many people, they've got their phone out, they're filming or they're taking pictures. There is so much history that hundreds, maybe thousands of people have forgotten about, trapped on the memory of phones in this area. And people should be retrieving this and sharing it.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. Because, you know, like I said, 20, 30 years, people are going to be looking to documentaries like this. They're going to be looking to social media posts. They're going to be looking at clips of video and photos on social media and on the news, and using that to weave together this very complex history and tell the story. So I encourage as many people as possible, if you have that kind of stuff, to get it out there, because, you know, that's how people are going to tell the story, and, you know, future generations are going to learn about this.
So I think I'm going to wrap it up, because I think we could talk for a long time, like a lot longer than we have, because there's so much to unpack, right?
Yeah.
We've taken 5.5 weeks and squished it into an hour and 8 minutes.
Yeah.
The other thing I guess I want to appeal at this point was, this would not have been possible without our patrons. This would not have been possible without those who support us on Venmo. If you're new to the channel, for as little as $2 a month, literally $2 a month, you can support us as a patron. And that may not sound like a lot, but, you know, you get 10, 20 people doing $2 a month, and it starts to add up. So the other thing is, if being a patron isn't just your thing, you know, you can Venmo us and throw a little in the tip jar. It helps us continue to create additional content, because the next documentary is already being worked on. And we've been running some trailers on that. So please consider becoming a supporter. Patrons are going to get an invite for a special rescreening, patron only. And the patrons will have an exclusive Q&A where we'll be all on screen together, and we can actually talk and not have the chat. That will be available to all patrons at any level. Normally, we reserve that for our maximum malcontents and our main malcontents. This will be open to all patrons at any level. So if I dangle a little carrot out there for a $2 or $5 a month subscription, there's a big perk that'll come for you in early June. And then Jennifer, I think with that, we'll say goodnight. We have happy hour tomorrow.
Yeah.
We'll see what's in the news cycle. I know, well, depending on what happens in Tacoma, I might be driving down there with the cameras and stuff. We may be doing a live stream instead of happy hour. We'll see what we learn about Manny Ellis.
All right. Well, wonderful job, David. This was a great documentary, and I hope everybody took something away, you know, with them after watching it. And I hope everybody enjoyed it and appreciates all the work and love that went into it.
All right, Jennifer, good night. Malcontents.
Good night, everybody.
Hope you like the shirt, by the way. Merch is coming. This is a merch shirt. Merch is coming. Good night, everybody.
Malcontent News is a team of journalists, activists, and researchers with 3 key missions. A commitment to show an unfiltered view of the before, during, and after of key events, live, as it happens. To defend the First Amendment using our rights of a free press.
and to amplify the voices of underrepresented individuals, including Black, Indigenous, persons of color, and the LGBTQIA+ community. Our team is committed to seeking equality for all and holding those in power accountable. The easiest way to support Malcontent News is to bookmark our website at malcontentnews.com, like and follow us on Facebook, subscribe to us on YouTube, and follow us on Twitter, TikTok, Twitch, Instagram, and in the Google News app. To provide financial support, you can become a patron, make a one-time donation through Venmo, or link your Twitch account to your Amazon Prime account and use your free subscription to subscribe to Malcontent News. Thank you for supporting independent journalism and for being a malcontent.
You fit the profile. You're the malcontent.
Nobody wants to hear the nonsensical ravings of a loudmouth malcontent.
He said malcontents, Antifa, fuck you.
You are the biggest hypocrite on the face of the planet.
I say that you're a terrible reporter. That's what I say.